many different technologies to reach each and every individual citizen. With that in mind, Broadband India Forum was at the forefront as the WANI solution was being developed and showcased to the TRAI back in 2016. Field tests and trials culminated in the recommendation to the DoT, and finally, PM WANI was announced. It is only natural, therefore, that we should be here in this place and running this accelerator program to seed the marketplace, this very eminent technological capability, and which has the ability to reach out to each and every citizen. The program is put in place for the benefit of those innovators and entrepreneurs looking to take up implementation and rendering of these PM WANI services. PM WANI as a concept, as a service, and as a facilitator for extending broadband services to all will be covered extensively in these sessions, and the speakers coming after me will be expanding further to provide greater. We are very pleased to have the support of the Department of Telecommunications, and we extend our thanks to the respected Secretary for the special thrust that he has provided and the entire DoT team for their support. And I recognize Kishore Babu's presence today at the session. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us. We would like to also acknowledge the support of Meta in this outreach and the hard work put in by Headstart in organizing these series. Finally, the role of our president, the redoubtable Mr. T.V. Ramachandran, cannot be underestimated. He is responsible for the continued drive to realize this vision of leaving no citizen behind. I invite the entrepreneurs to visit the Connectivity Accelerator website and register for the program. And I wish this session every success. I shall now hand over to Mr. Gautam, who is going to be your moderator for today's session. Over to you, Gautam.
Thank you so much. It is wonderful. It's always wonderful being here, Mr. Rajat. And the best part is, what a way to start than working with startups on a Saturday morning. It totally energizes all of us. In fact, we've all had a long week. Most of us, joining this session, you've all had a long week, right? Saturday mornings are usually the time that you would love to really keep aside for your family. And if you've actually taken the time, precious time out to come and be a part of this session, it only calls for how much passion you have and how much love you have for innovation, for this theme around connectivity, and of course, startups. So I really want to acknowledge all of you, if wherever you are, give a pat on your back, because it totally deserves a great amount of passion and love for what you do to be here on a Saturday morning. And we've been doing this every Saturday morning, right? It is really a goosebumps moment for me to see so many people get up on a Saturday morning after such a long week. All of us go through different highs and lows on the personal and professional front. So wanted to start with acknowledging all of you for getting up and being there each of the Saturday mornings, and especially this one. So let me quickly take a minute in setting the context before we have the esteemed speaker as well, right? Because one of the key agendas behind why are we doing this, with Broadband India Forum leading the charge around how can we have startups build around the PM WANI, is all about the Wi-Fi internet being so affordable. And consumer internet sector in the last decade has completely changed the way we as normal Indians work, right? It cuts across healthcare, education, the way we consume content. I think it's had a huge difference to all our lives. It's just that it's become so normal for us to figure out what was it a decade ago without the way connectivity was. Affordability makes a huge difference in taking all this to tier 2, tier 3 as well. And that is where the PM WANI scheme announced by the Department of Telecommunication is very keen to see how can we increase the penetration of internet connectivity across the country, right? Through a decentralized system of public access points. I think the series that Broadband India Forum has been designing over the last 1 month, along with Meta and Headstart, is around awareness as well as ensuring there's collaboration around what is the PM WANI scheme that all of us are looking to build around as startups. So the most important piece here is the scheme has been announced by the Department of Telecommunications, but the ecosystem around it, the startups that all of you are on this call, you have a very important role to play to access, the access of Wi-Fi connectivity and accelerate the penetration a lot more deeper in the coming years. So on that note, where I wanted to highlight that the role of you startups is going to be very, very high as we all look to take the PM WANI scheme deeper and make it a lot more successful. Today, it's an honor to start today's event with Sri Kishore Babuji. Thank you so much for joining us, Sri Kishore Babu. And for everyone, Sri Kishore Babu is the Deputy Director General of the Department of Telecommunications. He's got over 3 decades of experience in public policy development and been involved in projects of national significance. He's been spearheading the high-impact ICT projects that's been involved as part of the department and has great overview over the government's role in the PM WANI ecosystem as well. And without further ado, I would love to really invite Mr. Kishore Babu to give his address and share the guys with the rest of the speakers today. Thank you so much, Mr. Kishore Babu, for joining us. It's a great honor for a lot of the startups on today's session to hear you and listen to you from your perspective.
Am I audible, Mr. Gautam?
Loud and clear, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much. And first and foremost, very good morning to all of you. As Gautam mentioned that, on a Saturday morning, most of us, keeping many things aside, we have been here to look at the opportunity what PM WANI can provide and what kind of business opportunities it can create, how it can help us, in driving this digitalization, or I should say, taking the broadband to the nook and corner of the country. Thanks very much for all of us being here, and many thanks to coordinators and organizers, including Mr. Rajatji, Gautam, Debashish, Anand, and TVR, and most importantly the stakeholders who are here. Thanks very much for the kind introduction and making me part of this interaction, which is very important with regard to DOT's objectives, especially taking note of National Digital Communication Policy objectives to take broadband everywhere in the country. Gautam mentioned 2 important things. One is about the connectivity, affordability. I also want to add to that, third dimension called demand generation. I personally have seen some of the, this Wi-Fi PDOs located in some parts of Delhi, of course not in rural areas, even in urban environment where we feel that there is a, ubiquitous mobile coverage and high throughput broadband connectivity. There are many areas which really require, or there's a gap in coverage as well as the quality what we want to experience with regard to meeting the day-to-day requirements of internet connectivity, call it education or consultation or interactive, collaborative, interaction. So there is a real need for broadband even in urban areas and of course in rural areas very much, where there's a real program, how they have enabled this particular engagement of digitalization and as well as providing access at very affordable cost. It's really very learning as well as mind-boggling about how new kind of business models are getting encouraged or happening there. Some of the PDOs mentioned that the coupon cost of 5 rupees, which are valid 2 days and unlimited access. And I personally interacted some of the students as well as some of the homemakers about how they are using it. There is a there is a grand appreciation for the program as well as the reach what PM WANI program is giving to these areas which have been uncovered because of challenges in mobile coverage. I'm very sure and clear that there's a grand opportunity for PM WANI program for its proliferation, and it's only a matter of time. With all your support, it's going to happen. And apart from demand, what has come up because of the what challenging times we have all gone through because of COVID, and most works and services happening online, I'm sure that I'm very confident that this demand is going to continue for such remote access, because it also broke certain mindsets how we access services, including education, health, and other sectors. And importantly, even the spectrum as a resource in especially 5 gigahertz band, it's made abundantly available as part of the decisions taken by Department of Telecom for the last few years. Significant amount of spectrum for Wi-Fi is available in 5 gigahertz band, and which is dominantly used in many of the devices. We have got a lot many devices as well in the country which use these bands. And there are also efforts in identifying new bands and what way we can make this spectrum more available to address and solve the growing needs. There's also a good development. And as well as a lot of studies are going on with regard to identification of bands and what kind of facilitation can be done, how those spectrum bands can be used. And one more opportunity in terms of business innovation or business model partnerships, what you're all exploring as part of this today's session. We can also look at how we can reduce the device cost. Device cost is one of the key maybe barriers in rural areas as we move in. In one of the, I think it is IMRB reports, I think somewhere I read that there is a huge gap with regard to usage of smartphone in rural areas. That could be one opportunity where with affordable smart devices and as well as handsets, this particular issue could be addressed for proliferation of PM WANI and also as part of demand generation. And when we looked at the current numbers of PDOs, it stands around 56,000, which again indicates that there is a lot of opportunity which need to be tapped, considering that a significant part of this is moved from what I should say, some of them converted, some of them are expanding new under this particular new program, which I should say the flagship program from the government to drive this PM WANI. And some of the policy inputs what we received during the industry interactions. You are all aware that there was some industry interaction and industry consultation was carried out in a comprehensive manner, collecting inputs from all the stakeholders. And lot many inputs have come, and they have been they are all being taken forward to address some of the issues raised by PDOAs and the PDOs about to enhance the facilitation of what is available to them. And I'm confident that these inputs and consultation process will continue to support the industry as well as stakeholders' efforts to take PM WANI to the nook and corner of the country. And your inputs are always welcome. And Data Services Division as a nodal agency for the PM WANI program welcomes continuously these inputs, from all the stakeholders and associations with regard to policy interventions, with regard to technology inputs, and more facilitation areas where you need support. Kindly continue to keep giving. And we are all ears, to hear about what kind of business model innovation you're looking for and what new areas that can emerge in facilitating this broadband at areas where connectivity is limited, and as well as despite connectivity having, and how we can make more affordable with the growing demand. And all these areas would be of interest for the devotee as well as for the stakeholders in this engagement. Thanks very much for BIF for arranging this program. And I wish you all the best. And we look forward to hearing more and productive deliberations on this front. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. I think very insightful. In fact, thanks for highlighting, about demand generation being the third perspective here. I think that's a very important piece, because like I had mentioned at the start, the consumer internet companies that have been making lives easier for us around education, healthcare, content consumption, etc., social media. So I think a lot of startups today that are becoming unicorns, which is a very common word in the startup ecosystem today. We've got about 81 unicorns in India, and that is turning everyone's heads across the world. Whether you're in the US, UK, Europe, everyone is looking at India from a startup ecosystem perspective, saying what is really happening, because 81 unicorns in a country like India. And last year we had 40 plus. This year we've already got 10 plus in the first 2 months. there is something right about what's happening in India. And which is where we highlighted from one thing that really came out of your conversation is the most important pillar of demand generation that gets created after, the Wi-Fi connectivity being solid, right? And all these companies are able to, build on top of it and really, monetize and become bigger. So in my view, I think the next 3 to 5 years are really beautiful, especially for a lot of consumer internet companies, with so many initiatives being done by different players to ensure Wi-Fi connectivity is a lot more affordable. It penetrates a lot more deeper. So thank you so much for your insights, sir.
Thank you very much. Wish you all the best again.
At this point, I would love to introduce or move to the next speaker. And before I move to the next speaker, I would love to have a quick context setting here in terms of what exactly are we doing today, right? One of the main reasons we are here is every week, if you notice, every Saturday, we've been looking at picking up a core area within the entire Broadband India Forum's focus on Wi-Fi connectivity and PM WANI scheme. We've been looking at it from a different angle. We're looking at it from a core engineering side. We're looking at it from a partnership angle. We're looking at it from a business model angle. So today's one of the key areas is to see from a business fundamentals angle, business fundamentals, strategic partnerships, how are corporates working with startups. So these are things that are very important for us. The engineering becomes the base and the foundation of what we're building around this new world. But more importantly, it is, how do you build it sustainably as a business around, right? Because so far in the last few years, the cost of delivering internet was the biggest problem. The infra, the hardware, the setup cost, and then taking it to each or the last mile connectivity in Wi-Fi, happened to be a big issue, big hurdle. And a lot of those are getting addressed gradually through this scheme as well in the next couple of years. How can startups build for different layers? There are layers that are at the core that startups can build around the PM WANI. There are layers around the core to ensure that the overall experience of the consumers is also enhanced. The overall effectiveness of consumption, because sir was also mentioning about demand generation, it's also about consumption. It's not just about access, but how effectively are people consuming once the Wi-Fi internet is come their way. So I think these are things that are very important. We are looking at how effective is the process being implemented, and how are startups being able to build it sustainably by creating layers or creating monetizable layers around as well as the core. So on this note, we really wanted to invite Mr. Srinivas Gudipudi. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us and volunteering to educate a lot of the startups today on the business fundamentals of the PM WANI stakeholders. So thank you so much for joining us. A quick introduction for the rest of you about Mr. Srinivas. Mr. Srinivas has rich experience in building next generation network products, especially in network service automation, cloud networks, and data monetization. Smart cities has been a big area of focus for Mr. Srinivas as well. And he's a prominent consultant in the field of internet tech. He's worked very closely with a lot of governments, including India, Singapore, and the Qatar government. He's also a holder of multiple patents, especially in the field of network management. He's also recognized as one of the top 10 innovators in the country from the Smart Techie magazine. So thank you so much, Mr. Srinivas, for joining us. All of us are looking forward to understanding a bit more from the other lens. So far in the last couple of weeks, we've been going deeper into the technology side of things, as well as the bare PM WANI scheme, what it is intending to do. I think this will be a great opportunity for us to understand from a sustainability, building a business model around it, and how we can build for the PM WANI ecosystem. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Gautam. Yeah, I hope all of you can see my screen on the presentation.
Yes, we can.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks thanks to the Broadband Forum and everyone, DOT and everyone, for giving us this opportunity. So as part of this today's presentation, my goal will be more to put seeds of thoughts as to what is it that could happen in terms, what is it that's needed on the field, and what is it that the providers can do in terms of the business models, as compared to giving a specific business model or B specific thing that will work or not work. But rather, I would like to open it up more for our debate among the folks, because that's the reality is business models are more connected to the what consumer wants and what provider, how provider can adopt it or change it to make the things happen. So the today's my particular presentation on this thing will be more to put those seeds of thoughts in place, along with some of the things that are available, so that people can think through and see what is it that can be best be. The first thing, when we start up any business, I think the first question that's asked is that, is there a need for the product? I think PM WANI program has been announced, and many people do ask a question. We have 4G, we have internet at home. Do we still need internet through the PM WANI? That's a question that comes up. The first fundamental business, this thing is there a need? I think all of you know that there's no rocket science in the fact that about 50% of the India is covered by internet, and there's a 50% which is not so well covered by the internet. Now, from the general interactions and everything, what we have is that the 50% where the internet is not reachable or not available, they've been significantly been forthcoming and welcoming. So the need for the internet and the consumer acceptance and availability, it's been kind of been validated over the past few months. And that's why we are seeing that more larger adoption of the PM WANI slowly progressing up ahead and making it happen. And I think everyone would agree upon to this, the basic notion that we can basically live for a day or two without food, and food may not be water. But I think similarly, what has become is that without internet also we cannot sustain for long. So it has become an absolute need, but there is a 50% of India where this need has not become a part of their lives yet. It is there as an intermittent thing, but once they get hooked onto it, it will become a need, and that opens up significant opportunities. Now, the other thing is many people ask this question: what's the business model to adopt? What's the best business model? Any business model is basically fulfilling the needs of the stakeholders in the system, right? The stakeholder over here is not just the end consumer who's buying it, but they're also all the entire set of stakeholders who are there right from in the chain, right from the PM WANI provider, the PDOA, or the internet service provider, the PDO. In addition to it, whatever be the local economy. The local economies could be right from a village, a farm, farmer, or could be a restaurant, it could be a hotel, it could be a hospital, anyone. It's almost like you need to think through of the fact that what is it that would be best model out for them. So if I were to just sharing my thoughts aloud, if there's someone who's basically got a low income capabilities, they would look up at as to how is it that I can pay in small parts or pay as I earn. So for them, as all of you would be aware, yes, we have the subscription model. So in this case, the PDOA or whosoever be the appropriate channel or the organizations under the PDOA would need to take up the capex and then distribute it out periodically. So it's again, as I said, meeting the customer expectations to your business way of engaging the business and providing it out. The second part of it is basically, let us say that the customers have significant availability of cash and everything, and they would like to, instead of taking the additional margins on the subscription, they want to go up ahead with the other models, so they can do that. Now, when I'm basically mentioning all of this, I'm hoping and assuming that all of you are aware about the PM WANI program. Maybe I'll just take a minute or two to just highlight it. So as part of the PM WANI, yes, we have this structure like the public call office, the PCO booths. Similarly, it's the PDO. So the PDO, what does he need? He needs access point hardware. He needs a mobile app that can be given to common citizens. He needs an app for the aggregator for himself to track all the users and the usage, and similarly another one for the aggregator. So these services provided over here comprise of the internet, but the entire infrastructure that's required to make it happen comprises of basically the hardware, the software, the internet, and the infrastructure to provide the internet. So as all these components come, the model over there would depend on as to how you are able to amalgamate these. For example, if you're able to sign up with an ISP for the internet as a revenue share model, you can probably take it and trickle it down to the PDO, saying that, okay, see, I'm getting my internet on a revenue share. So I think what I can do is build up parallelly a revenue share agreement with my common citizens, with the PDOs, and the common citizens, not the common, with the PDOs. So they can kind of want to do that. So signing up a revenue share model with the ISP, signing up a kind of buy now, pay later for the hardware, and others would help. That way, what happens up is that the upfront cost to invest comes down significantly. And you can kind of work out a way by which you use the earnings that you get to repay back the investment and lighten the burden on yourself. So, and that would take you primarily into the subscription model. But on the other hand, let us say that you have low cost hardware, which you would basically, and the entire software platform solution, and you would like to basically pass it along. What could be done is that you take the entire thing, give it to a PDO or the last mile, and do a small markup. Now over here, what we typically have seen is that the outdoor access points are a little bit costly. That's more because of the fact that the hardware to create it and to ensure that all the security and other capabilities so that it's reliable and sturdy makes the cost a little bit higher. But in case you have some of the indoor customers who can use the indoor access points like the restaurants, hotels, hospitals, over there you can kind of use probably a markup model where you give them add a small percentage because the cost will not buy it, and they can use it to get started. And the other way around is that you kind of incentivize everyone along the chain and help them to basically take the product in and add a little bit of their parts and do it. This model of the affiliate model helps you to build your network faster. You can reach out to more and more people, incentivize them, and grow your network faster. So that way you basically, for example, if you are having a master franchisee, which is state-based, then district-based, and then village or town-based, that way you are basically incentivizing everyone along the chain and giving it. Now this incentivization need not be just be commission-based, it can even be revenue share-based or anything, but you can work out something that works best for you and then push it down the line. There's no one solution which fits all. It's more dependent on the fact that what is it that the consumer or the person who's going to take it is willing to accept. And my suggestion would be that you have all these models, all the three of them together available with you, so that when based on what the customer is looking for, you can give him one or the other. Now, basically, the goal is that in the PM WANI, we need to ensure that it spreads as fast, as much as possible. Now, the entry barrier over there would be if anybody wants to get started. There are many folks who want to get started. But what's the entry barrier? The entry barrier being the fact that as much as it's financial, and from my experience is also a little bit technical. The financial aspect is that, yes, the cost, how much are people willing to afford in tier 2 towns and villages, or even in urban areas. I wouldn't want to say quote a number saying that this number is affordable, but rather I think each one of you can benchmark that. And the factors that contribute to the cost are the hardware, the software, and the internet. So now this, how much affordable to make or not make also depends on how many subscribers can you get onto this. So, but in general, in order to make it affordable, as I said, if you take it, if it's provided as a subscription basis, more people will come. More people will come because the upfront burden is reduced. And also you can choose probably the indoor and the outdoor and the various models in combinations based on subscriber density to make it choose the best fit hardware for the business needs. Because at some place you may only have probably about 10-20 folks connecting at any concurrent instance. What happens is that many a times we get the question, how many users can connect to this access point? I need 100, 200 concurrent connections. It's good to hear that thing, but the reality is that sometimes the surrounding audience is not that dense. The surrounding audience may probably have about 10 or 20 concurrent connections. So the number to be considered and is something that you need to educate the audience is that the number of concurrent connections is important, not the amount of possible audience that may connect over a period of time, maybe a week or month or something. But will all of them be on at the same time? Statistically, no. And that's how most of the quality of cost services in the routers and the switches are designed as well. They are more based on the best fit scenario as compared to the peak load. So choose the best fit hardware. And there are many options available. I would encourage you to explore them, but ensure whatever you pick is PM WANI compliant in terms of the security features, lawful intercept logs and everything. If it is not PM WANI compliant, don't do anything. You have to just pick up the right hardware and the firmware to do that and make it happen. Right. The second part, now let's look up at software platform. So the software platform, if anyone wants to get started and they're thinking of building up a platform now, and then they say, okay, once it's ready, then I will get started and I'll do. It's basically a platform wherein you need to put billing, invoicing, a CRM to basically network management, provisioning, diagnostics, all of it in one place, and asset management, everything. It's going to take time. It's going to take time for you to get started, and you may lose focus from your business and sales and marketing and probably end up becoming more of a technologist as compared to a businessman. My general suggestion would be pick up a PM WANI as a service platform. Instead of basically building, it's a buy option, take it and get started. It will be white labeled and provided to you so that you can focus on business and capturing the market. If you lose your time on capturing the market, somebody else will capture it and take it away. Don't do that. Take that out and go. And in terms of choosing the internet, various internet service providers have various models. Some of them have revenue share, some of them have fixed price. So it also is a way by which you discuss with them as to how is it that they can kind of provide a model. If it's a revenue share, it can be basically a place where you work with them for free for some time. You say that, okay, I'll choose this infrastructure, which will be free for about 6 months or 7 months or 8 months or a year. But subsequently, you give them a higher revenue share, but something that will help you get started. So now these are some things that you can discuss with your internet service provider and make it happen. Because it's again, as I said, I can't give specific models. I can only put seeds of thoughts of what is something that you can think through and work with your stakeholders in the chain, because each one will have different stakeholders and they may appreciate different kind of the business engagements. But yes, you may or may not need to pay for internet upfront. So that way, if the hardware, you choose the best fit hardware, you use PM WANI as a service and your internet on a revenue share or other models, your cost to get started gets significantly managed. And if that is there, you can spread more, set up more PDOs. Now, what is it that we need to do? We have a product. Let us say you have a low cost PDO. You have got a low cost, just you need to take it up ahead. Where do you need to focus so that your business starts rolling? You start making money. Yes, tier 2 towns and villages is the case. But at the same time, as Kishore Babu sir was mentioning, urban area is also a significant business proposition, because we may, as much as we may say that we get 1 GB or 2 GB on the phone, the 1 GB or the 2 GB at least, what I, in my personal experiences, gets exhausted pretty fast. And even in the urban areas, we sometimes are looking for where is it that I can get an alternate internet options. So tier 2 villages, towns and villages, you are welcomed. You're welcomed to basically your fulfilling a fundamental need. Cost is a factor. So as what I mentioned earlier, take that up and the cost becomes easier. Where is it? But the challenge from my personal experience has been cost and providing the product is okay. But the folks on the field are not that technically literate. And this is a highly technical product. It's not like you just buy it and start using it. There's a little bit of a setup effort, which we'll have to basically work to solve it out. And we're working to as much simplify that through the various things that we're doing, and make it almost completely zero, with zero effort from anyone, to make it just come up all by itself. And beyond that, in terms of looking up at whom to reach out beyond the tier 2 towns and villages, you can go to hotels, hospitals, restaurants, all of that. So take that and get going. Now, in terms of how is it that you can engage up with them over here? So let's look up at the common citizens. Currently, folks have been trying to build up either a fixed price model, because that's how they are going and using it out. Now, in terms of your structure, as a PDOA, you can have your franchisee model, master franchisee, and then the PDO and everything. Now, over here, your model structure in terms of the money division, as I gave those 3, it can be fixed value or fixed subscription based or upfront. You can choose them out. But the key goal over here is that, be it your master franchisee or your franchisee or anyone, the aspect is that you need to connect more and more audience, and you reach them out, your costs will automatically start getting lowered, and it will work to basically reach out to a place where it becomes affordable, because the only way that you can make this business model succeed at a lower cost is by increasing volume. So these are the places where you can look up to quickly increase your volumes. Now, in addition to basically providing the internet-based services, one of the things is that we're connecting a significant part of the audience who's not used internet much. I won't say that they have not used internet. They will not have used internet much because of the lack of availability. But there are these various other options. You add them to your PM WANI, this thing, and then you can have your models, business models being created in terms of internet plus advertisement, internet plus OTT plus commerce or agricultural services. You'll have to study the local market. You have to study what's the need of the local person over there, and then add them and then take it up ahead. So it's got to be more based on the local needs, and internet acts as a vehicle over there, as compared to internet acting as the target product to enable more and more availability and usability and consumption. So low costs, value-added services is the way that you can basically work to have your business model and structure being built and being made available and absorbable. Now, as much as I may have mentioned a few of those things and everything, again, as I mentioned, the goal over here was to more put seeds of thoughts as compared to giving like you have to do by A model, B model, or C model. I don't ever believe that there's a fixed model. The model is driven more by the consumers than by the creators of the product. The consumer is the one who will say, I will buy if I get something like this. So your model has to be driven and be adopted and changed accordingly. But yes, we are working to connect the tier 2 towns, villages, urban areas, and over there, what they need, the new products, what they need, please understand them. And I think there are a few models which I've shared. You can see as to how you can mix, blend, and use them. But you have your consumer who's away from the urban areas, and you have basically some ways to make it low cost, and you have ways to add value-added services. You can just take.
And Srinivas, I just wanted to quickly jump in here because what you've been throwing is great nuggets of value bombs for a lot of us. Like you also called out saying these are all sowing seeds of ideas and thoughts on a lot of aspiring entrepreneurs and early stage entrepreneurs as well who are building around the space. What I just wanted to summarize for the benefit of a lot of people, because there were a lot of value bombs here. I wanted to also, quickly highlight a couple of things. Right, the way you started was like a punch dialogue in some of our movies. Right, that is, roti kapda makan is been what we've been hearing, but now Wi-Fi, and it actually allowed a lot of us to take a pause and think, because we don't really call it out and say Wi-Fi is not that important. But imagining 2 days without Wi-Fi, you can even trek without a home, but 2 days without connectivity is not imaginable. I was just thinking, I haven't been away from my phone for like even a few hours. So thank you so much for calling that out. In fact, I really liked the way you spoke about how this entire focus now is to position it as a vehicle or an enabler and not the product itself. I think that's a great angle for people to think, because it allows them to build an ecosystem around and not try to position them as the product. So I think, thank you so much for joining us today, because I think the Broadband India Forum has been doing a fabulous job in trying to bridge the industries with startups. One final thought, 2 cents from you for the rest of them, because there are a lot of startups in this industry. Traditionally, we've not seen a lot of startup industry collaboration, unlike the other industries like software, etc., where right from day one there was a strong collaboration. Your 2 cents to a lot of startups that are coming up. What do they need to be prepared with when they start collaborating with the incumbents or the bigger players in this industry to ensure that the relationship is a lot more effective? Your 2 cents as a closing thought, sir.
See, I think rather than believing that some incumbent or some large company will help them or guide them, I would basically ask them to turn it around and look up at what is it that this particular section of the audience or the economy or those particular things, what is it that they need? If they're solving, it's almost like a patient and a doctor. So if you have some medicines, you go to a patient and you basically say that, okay, I got this medicine for fever, I got this medicine for cold. The patient may say, okay, yeah, thank you very much, I have heard you. But let us say that the patient has a pain in the foot, and then you say, okay, yeah, I've got this medicine for this pain in the foot. They'll immediately take it. So don't worry, I think more than focusing up on the incumbents and the large guys to kind of guide you, which may happen, but I think you finding the solution, what is it that the audience needs, and then taking and collaborating with the larger guys to help fulfill that would be the way to go. But expecting that the larger guys will basically find the problem for you, find the solution for you, and do everything for you may not be the way. So first focus on what the consumers' problems that you want to solve, and then take the ecosystem and other enablers from the larger folks to make it happen. So
thank you so much, sir. In fact, I think that's a very, very valuable point, because by nature, all of us love to crib about what is not happening for us. I think it is a great sales-driven approach for us to see how can we add value to someone else, right? Whether it's an individual or an organization, whether it's your ultimate customer or a partner in between. I think that's a great two cent that I think all of us should take home from here on how do you see how you can add value to every relationship, whether it's an intermediary, whether it's a partner, whether it's a customer. So on that note, thank you so much, Mr. Srinivas Gudipudi. Thank you so much for joining us. We will all stay in touch with you because, of course, this is a very nascent stage. A lot of startups are building in this space, and I think senior leaders like you will be able to add a lot of value to the journey of these startups. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
On that note, I would love to move to the next part of today's session. It's great. So I personally come from the corporate innovation side as well. I've been driving the innovation network at Infosys, and then I was with Microsoft. Today I'm on the other side with the venture capital as well. It's always fascinating to interact with people from the corporate, especially those who have a perspective and views of working with startups. And I'm really glad to invite the next speaker for the day, Mr. Francis Jose. Thank you so much for joining us, sir. Francis Jose is the Director for Mobile and Connectivity Partnerships at Meta. Before joining Meta, of course, Francis has been very popular in the telecom industry. He's been with Samsung for about 7 years and has also had leadership roles with Reliance and Airtel as well. Someone who's been a very, very popular leader within the internet connectivity space for his involvement and his work in the space. So thank you so much. And I would really love to acknowledge the work being done by Meta and the Meta connectivity team, to be specific, in helping and working with a lot of partners in jointly developing tech, sir. And especially, the Broadband India Forum Connectivity Accelerator is also, has received a lot of boost from the Meta connectivity team. So I would love to acknowledge you and your team for, supporting, acting as a catalyst in the entire industry startup collaboration space in something as nascent as the PM WANI space. So thank you so much for joining us, sir. Something that all of us would be very keen to hear. We've got a lot of startups building around the PM WANI ecosystem. We would love to hear from you on how you are rethinking internet proliferation. Today and in future, how you and Meta are looking at it. It'll be great to understand that from you.
Thank you very much for having us here. You made me sound much more distinguished than I actually am, but thank you again. Internet proliferation as a concept, I think, has been spoken about for ages, and therefore I don't think there's something that I would probably provide which is something completely unheard of in toto. What I'm going to try and do is give all of you all here, the audience, the group and all, the broad, a sense through the lens of Meta in terms of what do we think internet proliferation is going to move towards. And we're going to do that in this particular call through two broad lenses. There is one from a infrastructure point of view, from an infrastructure provider's lens, if I can call it that. The other one from where we think the internet is probably going to progress over the next maybe 1, 5, 10, 15 years. And that's the broad ethos that I'm trying to play. A bit of the philosophy to start with. So as cliched as it may actually sound, humans are like a social species. We have this deep inside need to communicate, connect, believe in a common cause, if I can call it that. This gives rise to the concept of communities, people with a shared goal, an objective, a way of life, a common passion, like cyclists, for example. Meta's mission has been focused very broadly and accurately towards this human need and the attempts to give people the power to build community and bring the world closer together. Now, the internet has brought the world closer in more ways than one. And there was no better proof of this pudding than what we experienced over the past 2 years. The internet proved to be that connective tissue that brought people closer to each other. And when they needed to be, when they had nothing else to do or nowhere else to go for that matter. When work had to continue without a workplace or schools had to function without a classroom, the internet became just that very backbone to life, if you can call it that. Maybe as important as a trifecta of roti, kapda or makan, which Srinivas just referred to earlier in the session and then Gautam reiterated just about 5 minutes ago. I guess it's become roti kapda makan and internet or Wi-Fi, the way you want to look at it. Much touted, but glad to reiterate. In India, we have about 700 million people on the internet, give or take, depending on who's asking and who's telling, and almost about 435 million. So in crore terms, 43.5 crore people in India access Facebook, one of our apps, every month. Our apps, Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, are immersed in the very fabric of India, and we're actually grateful for the opportunity to play a role in one of these most exciting transformations that the world has actually seen. Now, one of the roles that I play at Meta is the work that we do with a team called Meta Connectivity. It's a dynamic organization, not heard about too much on the outside, whose long-term vision is to work with the connectivity ecosystem, all of us right now on this call, to help stakeholders build networks that cater to the compute and the connectivity needs of communities and the customers they serve. Now, one way that we engaged with this ecosystem is via an alliance called TIP. It stands for Telecom Infra Project, which is an industry alliance that works to drive innovation across the entire connectivity landscape. As one of the founding members of TIP back in 2016, if I'm not wrong, while we focus on driving innovations at one end, we also aim very broadly to grow this universe by bringing in more and more partners to join the movement. And it broadly aims to build and test newer technologies that are broadly more efficient than what we have in play at this point in time, and most importantly, are interoperable across product cycles. So let me now showcase an example of how we are working with partners to help, for example, reduce the total cost of ownership of a Wi-Fi network or for service providers. It's a concept that we have called open. I mean, it's not we have. It's a concept called open Wi-Fi. One of the offerings we have contributed to is to build open Wi-Fi as a community developed. It's open, right? Disaggregated, a Wi-Fi software system, which is offered as free open source software. Now, it includes both a cloud-based controller SDK and also an enterprise-grade access point firmware, which is designed and it's been validated numerously to work seamlessly together. So what's the broad aim here? The one-line objective, if I can call it that, is to reduce the total cost of deployment and running. So in a way, the total cost of ownership of Wi-Fi networks by service providers. Most public Wi-Fi deployments eventually hit that question that's not often talked about, but it's definitely whispered amongst the finance managers of these institutions as to what do we do to keep costs low. And that is probably where open Wi-Fi contributes the absolute most. It aims to lower the R&D investments needed to develop enterprise-grade, robust Wi-Fi solutions for equipment manufacturers on one side. On the other side, it provides very, very favorable economics and flexibility for service providers, and eventually the enterprises where these get developed and deployed. Maybe awaiting to launch PDOA in this audience could see a lot of value in considering the open Wi-Fi platform on which they would like to build. We have actually seen some PM WANI deployments trialing products from the open Wi-Fi stable during as late as the H2 of 2021. And the earliest results that we've been seeing there are very, very promising. So just to recap, at its heart, the open Wi-Fi movement is like a community, an ecosystem with customers' needs as the primary input for what we eventually build or what gets built. The open Wi-Fi community empowers stakeholders, and that includes members of this very audience who have interest in this space, to participate and to contribute. The best part is that everybody basically can see everything: the source code, nightly test results, the works. So it's a collaboration model which enables rapid development and release of features, and actually allows service providers like PDOAs in the PM WANI opportunity the flexibility to choose their equipment vendors without being tied to just one. So access points from different brands as per the needs of the provider can in a way work seamlessly under a common umbrella, making developments much more cost effective. The customer eventually becomes king, and the internet gets available more and more and more, and that much more robust at the same time. So you can join the TIP community too and learn as well as contribute. With the entire industry working together, the goal is to create a more diverse chain to help us for now and in the decades to come. Now, talking about decades to come, one word that you probably heard a lot about over the past many months is this word called the metaverse. Back, when the internet started, it was all about text. Then came the invention of the camera phone, and then it became a lot about photographs. Photograph sharing became the name of the game, and then the internet became so much more visual. And recently, as internet connections got much faster, video became the main way that we experience or engage with content. So we've gone from the desktop to the web to the phone, and from text to pics to video. But this, we believe, may just not be the end of the line. The next platform or medium will be even more immersive, an embodied internet, if I can call it. And I must emphasize that you are in the experience, not just looking at it. And this is what we call the metaverse. You basically live within the metaverse is the concept. And you can do almost everything and anything you can imagine. Get together with friends and family, work, learn, play, shop, create absolutely new categories that may not even exist at this point in time. Screens today, as we see them or experience them, cannot quite convey the entire gamut of human expression and connection. They can't deliver the deep feeling of presence. But hopefully, when the next version of the internet comes and the work is there, this probably will come to life. Technologies that are built around people that enhance the way we experience the world and the ways we interact with it. Broadly, the metaverse will allow geographically distant participants to enjoy spatially aware experiences, which in a way blend the real, the physical with the virtual. It allows people to get more connected with each other and actually feel the connection. While 3D spaces in the metaverse, and that's what you read in all the pink newspapers nowadays, will let you socialize and play in ways and means that we can't probably imagine today, using concepts like AR, VR, or the newfound term called XR. There will be multiple of entry points to the same using our good old mobile phones or tablets in 2D, like the AAA games that we are playing today. Extremely vivid experiences that change the very way in which we probably engage with the world. So broadly speaking, this move to the metaverse is actually an unprecedented sort of an opportunity, if I can call it that, for a whole range of industries, for a whole range of concepts, and also for the connectivity industry. You see, it must be built on a foundation of openness and interoperability, and be accessible to as many people as possible. Now, making the metaverse a reality in a way will require significant advancements in network latency, for example, or symmetrical bandwidth, or lower jitter, or higher speeds of networks. And this is just on the connectivity side. There are entirely new things on the content side, but I'm referring to connectivity primarily. And we frankly believe that no single company or industry or enterprise can actually do this all by themselves. Building the metaverse will actually require a very broad global effort. And we're looking forward to collaborating with industry as a whole on this exciting journey. That's broadly the talk that I had prepped for today.
Thank you so much, Francis. I think very, very enlightening to know exactly what has been happening from a meta side as well, right? Because there's so much focus on connectivity, and thanks for highlighting some of the aspects around how there's been efforts already going on the open software, making it a lot more distributed and decentralized. I think that's the real game today, making it distributed and decentralized, very important. Getting access, and allowing penetration to go. I think you also mentioned how it really brings down the cost of ownership and makes it a lot more affordable. I think these are very, very important aspects as we, probably take the 700 million mark a lot more higher. Sure. And probably, in the consumer internet space, like how startups would say, increasing the MAUs and DAUs, right? So for us, those are things that are important. How do we get more active users every month? So on that note, thank you so much. Thank you so much to you for joining us and sharing your view on how you and Meta have been looking at this. And thanks for your continued support on behalf of Meta, who's been supporting a lot of startups in jointly building for the space.
Yeah,
thank you
it's
so
been
much.
our pleasure. Thank you very much for having us here.
On that note, I'm going to quickly take a minute and take a pause and see if there are any questions so far. We would love to curate, or some of our speakers are also here. We've also got our leaders from the Broadband India Forum here. So keep your questions coming in. I know a lot of startups had also started texting us on how you could apply for the Broadband India Forum Connectivity Accelerator. So our team would be sharing the links on chat as well. But any questions that you may have, don't hesitate to ask us. We are here to take those questions as well. Any questions around how you would love to interact with the Broadband India Forum team or with the Accelerator team, don't hesitate to ask that now. I'm going to take a minute and see the questions that are coming in before moving on to the next session of the day. So you do have the link to the program, the Accelerator program of Broadband India Forum on the chat. You can click on it, go through the website, and see how you could enroll yourself for Broadband India Forum's Connectivity Accelerator. Perfect. On that note, 12 sharp. It's always a good feeling to stick to schedules. So I would love to invite our next speaker for today's session. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Amit. Amit, Anand is CTO Enterprise Solutions, Private Wireless Networks at Nokia. Thank you so much for joining us today on a Saturday morning, sir.
Thank you, Gautam, for having us here.
It's always you are audible loud and clear. It's always a pleasure working with the Nokia team. And with your permission, I would love to have a quick introduction of you for the benefit of the rest of the folks. For all of you, Amit is a senior leader, of course, with Nokia. He also comes with about 2 decades plus, 25 years of experience in the space of telecom. And everything that we're doing with the Broadband India Forum Connectivity Accelerator, is around relooking and looking at how can we integrate as a part of the accelerator. It's how can we integrate startups into the entire world of connectivity, into the world of PM WANI, into the world of Wi-Fi connectivity. On that note, Amit has been a senior leader handling diverse roles across his 2 decades of experience in the telecom space, cutting across sales and consulting and business development. The most important piece is he's a veteran. He's an expert in the entire 4G and 5G wireless, which we all know Nokia to be spearheading over the last decade. On that note, Amit, what we also realized was not just you in your personal capacity, but Nokia as an org has also been greatly involved with startups. And this is the entire Broadband India Forum Connectivity Accelerator that the session's part of, is all about bridging the gap between between startups on one side, industry on the other side, and the regulatory body on the third side, right? How can we all come together and as ecosystem enablers, Broadband India Forum, Headstart, how can we enable more startups to build around the PM WANI ecosystem, right? There are opportunities to build at the core of the ecosystem. There are opportunities to build around the ecosystem. And that's where we've had great conversations in the last 1 hour, with leaders talking about the opportunity to build both within as well as around, in improving or enhancing the experience and also improving the effectiveness of the overall adoption. On that note, I would really love to start with one question on Amit, is that Nokia in general has been doing a lot of work with startups, and it's not just in India. We've heard a great amount of story of how Nokia has been working closely with startups in Finland as well. But what will be relevant is if you can give us your lens of how Nokia works with startups, or why you believe it's important for an org as big as Nokia to work with startups.
All right. So now let me start with this thing. First thing, Nokia is looking for innovation deal, right? And we are supporting equally innovation by building the partner ecosystem, both in India as well as across the globe. And we do share, let me just give some good words to listen to the audience, that we do share cross country, cross world, the startups available for different and relevant use cases, so that we share the information, and if startups are readily available to participate in other part of the sphere, we introduce them to our colleagues globally. So that's another thing which we are doing. Now, why we see this is that we are a big corporates, and we have a targeted business thing. We are working on a large kind of a technology developments, which are just giving a connectivity and enabling the whole ecosystem. Now, this ecosystem which we are trying to create is somebody needs to utilize it. Like we have heard from our previous speaker, from Mr. Kishore Babu and other two colleagues from Meta, and this, how we utilize that, how we can, make this large technology evolution benefits to the last people at the last end. So where we talk about a lot in India, let's say remote healthcare, or rural healthcare, remote education kind of thing, agriculture sector. Now industry is also, buzzword is coming, industry 4.0. So who all is going to develop the application for these things? So these are the startups which are going to contribute largely on these domains, because large corporates, they will focus on developing the technology, and other things will create the help in bridging the connectivity domain for this, bringing application on the table. And I see a big advantage with the startups over here, that first of all, the fundamental which I say the benefit is that these startups which are coming in the teenage groups, and they are thinking totally disruptive, out of box. In large corporates, we always think from a process oriented and all the things, and a lot of approvals, other things are required. But in case of startups, they bang on, think on their target, what to do, and they do a disruptive thought process. That's very good. They adopt the technology very fast. Like my previous speaker was talking about it, they will be the first one who will adopt the technology like blockchain, machine learning, and then move towards the metaverse in a coming time frame, maybe 2 or 3 or 5 years down the line. And as of date, we are also engaging with all these companies or the startups who are into this domain of AR, VR, even drone management. So such applications are required nowadays. Remote healthcare is the need of our agriculture. How we can enhance the agricultural productivity is the need of our, but where we need to bring in the gap of IoT sensors. IoT is basically then the Wi-Fi connectivity bridging with the cellular technologies. So there I see that a lot of things can combine and complement each other and bring the social upliftment in totality. So startups will play a major role in this, I would say.
No, absolutely. I think it is wonderful to, I was just making some notes of what you were saying. It's wonderful to say how you're talking about, Nokia has been so open to adopting open innovation, which is, outside in innovation and incorporating that, because large corporates is very difficult to, integrate that seamlessly. A little later, I would love to understand on what has worked for you, because it's always fascinating to know what has worked in seamlessly integrating a culture, because as large corporates, we have so many large teams internally. We would love to innovate internally ourselves, but it comes from the DNA. But on that note, it was also wonderful to hear from you on how you are looking at startups for their speed as well as their innovation capability, right? Their nimbleness, their ability to take up quick experiments and run pilots very fast. Those are very, very crucial points, and these are points I would love to also reiterate for the startups here. This is how corporates think, right? You don't, as startups, we don't want you to think like corporates. Please don't. We want you to be yourself, because there are certain great qualities as startups that you have, which is the flexibility of not having to also wait for 6 months around decision making, because you've set certain processes in place and set certain systems in place. You've got the freedom to experiment a lot more than a corporate, and that's what the corporates want: that nimbleness, that flexibility in experimenting, the ability to take higher risks, right? I think these are very important qualities that we believe as corporates that you have as startups, which you can come and add value to corporates such as Nokia. And it's really heartwarming to know, Mr. Amit, about the ability to adopt and integrate startups from outside. So on that note, I just want to draw a quick parallel. Nokia has been working very closely with startups in other parts of the world, right? So this is something that we are all aware of, be it in the US, be it in Nordics. What we are all aware is Nokia works very closely with startups, not just on open innovation, but in also projects that are important and relevant for the community, for the ecosystem, and for the country at large, right? While of course some of the countries that you're doing this could be developed nations, and some of the countries could be developing nations. Are there 2 cents that you would love to give us on how you see it from an India lens in terms of working with startups, and how easy or difficult would things be for you?
Yes, it's a very good question, and really people really want to see that how the connectivity is being exploited by two different parts of the world, right? So what happens is that the fundamental difference between over here is that in developed worlds, people are aware of the connectivity. In developed countries, they use this connectivity for improving their life, productivity, and access the different informations, whether for agriculture part or for their healthcare application and other things. But in developing countries, what we are doing is what we have seen in the till now also is most of the data is being consumed just for media and entertainment purpose, less for applications or some governance. Now we have seen in our India part, let's say e-governance, let's say DBT, remote education programs or skill development. These things are starting to develop, starting happening over here. And DBT, yes, is a big, large success, but it's a push project, not a pull project for the end people. But that's the fundamental difference between the developed countries and local countries, our developing countries. But I have some 2 cents to say over here that how we can further add value to this. Our startups can really see that what kind of, there's a plethora of things can to be done or can be done in India market, and government is spending a lot on that. The central government, the state government, the panchayats, and they are having ample amount of funds. I think Kishore Babu will be able to tell more that there are so many departments in the country who have funds available from the government to do this social upliftment programs. So startups need to engage with these guys and then create a hyper localization of services, not a full scale services coming for pan India kind of things. Let them target for the localization services and then make the targeted application for these guys. And that will really help them, them to grow also and replicate those kind of success in different parts of the country. So let's say for farming, for local language services, local content creation, language is the biggest barrier again still on the application content front. Those things are changing. Facebook is doing very good job. Now Google is also doing the same thing, that they are creating content in local languages. But yes, applications is still missing, so that their startup can play a bigger role. Marketing of local products, let's say there are handicrafts or some other pottery products are coming in from different places, how we can help. We have seen that how this Amazon, Flipkart, and maybe the other one, third one, they have created the environment for this, things coming from remote areas. If I'm sitting in Delhi, I'm getting the things from the some Siliguri or some from down south. So, but somebody is enabling them. So there is a lot of scope available over there. So startup really needs to collaborate with these guys, local administration, state administration, and they have funds available to support these startups also. There is always, I can mention one more thing. DOT did 5G hackathon, and they invited a lot of startups. More than 100 startups are shortlisted for this. Good startups were given the funding also, some prizes as well, to develop these use cases and test them in the 5G field environment. So there's a support coming in from government side also on that side. So that's where I say that now we can bridge the gap between developed countries and the developing countries. So that's my take on this, and I am very hopeful and optimistic about it.
Absolutely. And, honestly, the Broadband India Forum's Connectivity Accelerator has been picking up momentum over the last 1 week. And we've been interacting with a lot of startups that are building around the PM WANI use case, as well as, connectivity as a whole. So I think it's also, just strengthening the entire cause of the Broadband India Forum's Connectivity Accelerator, with large organizations in this space like Nokia joining hands to work with startups that are going through the accelerator program. It's also heartening for us, and the startups there to know that they would have access to some of the leaders from Nokia through the accelerator program. A quick question on that note, Mr. Amit, is because Nokia already works with startups in India, what are some of the ways that you already have started working? I'm trying to understand from a engagement model perspective. How do you work with startups? How do you identify startups? How do you engage with them? If you can throw some light on
Sure.
what is happening today, it'll be great.
Sure. So let me tell you what was the drive over here, and it was one of my personal drive, and then it went into a company, and then it became global also. The push coming from this. When we are talking of maybe 3 years down the line before from now, uh, basically when the 5G was, hype was getting created over here. But then when we were discussing with different people, whether in the regulatory bodies, government, or with the CSPs, that what's the benefit of 5G? Because in a 4G, we are getting the connectivity and the speeds, YouTube, Google, and Facebook, everybody is able to enjoy at good speeds, so no issue at all. And we can further enhance that. But then what is the benefit of 5G? So then it came that 5G is not only for consumers like you and me and individuals, it is for the industries. It is for the unconnected, basically to the last mile, how you can give the right kind of information, which is not only just a text or strings, it is a kind of with a communication on a video upload and video download also. How the remote healthcare can be done, how the remote education can be done. And we have seen that during this pandemic time, it has really helped the broadband penetration, or with the rollout of 4G networks globally in India, it has really helped. So this kind of things, when it came to our mind, then we started, okay, now Nokia has some in-house applications available, but we don't have everything in all the domains. So when we discuss with different industry verticals, along with our telecom service providers like Airtel, Voda, or Jio over here, we shortlisted some industry guys, like for the manufacturing sector, automotive sector, ports, minings, oil and gas sector, healthcare, and remote. These were the 7 sectors where we have seen globally these people have benefited by doing the connectivity for themselves, and they have put up the different use cases on the floor, and which means they are able to remotely connect to their machines. Digitize and automation journey has started for them 2 years, 3 years back. What we need to do over there with in our country. So it is not only these industrial use cases, it is for tourism also. Now, I got a request from, let me give you a very good example. I got a request from hotel industry that before sending my tourist to the Kashmir, I need to show him the complete picture of Kashmir on a video screen, which means he was looking for an augmented reality kind of scenario, that we create that environment for him, that people, before they go here from that to that place, they are able to see that what kind of experience they are going to have it. So that's the experience which people are looking for. So seeing all those requirements coming from different sides of the different domains of the industry, we started interacting with and trying to finding out startups and different and to say with confidence on the side, that we started first with the big wigs, let's say Wipros, TCS, Infosys, Tata Elxsis of the world. But then we said, again, they are big corporates like us again, the little bit of flexibility issues, but they were working into this. Then we went to the startup domain and started searching the startups who are working on AR, VR, who are working on remote healthcare, who are working on or robotics, AIVs, AGVs. So based on this, then we brought them to on a table that let's discuss it, and we made them feel that once you are developing those products, how you're going to sell it, how you're going to monetize it. So there is a place that you need to integrate, you need to test it, and then you need to tell to the world that yes, this is a working product on certain connectivity environment, because nobody is looking for a LAN cabling now for any use case. So these are the things which when we found out these startups, it is really hard to do it. But yes, we have a method to do now, and I can mention that also to you, that we work on 4 or 5 different directions, how we engage and involve startups. One is that we have a Nokia Bangalore Innovation Center. It's a big, large R&D house in Bangalore, and every year we conduct 2 to 3 days kind of innovation day over there, where we give invitation to all the startups and existing companies, established companies also, come and showcase their use cases. And then we have our labs again in R&D labs in Bangalore. We have labs in Gurgaon, where we allow some startups to come and test their prototypes, so that we are able to offer that to the TSPs or to the enterprises, that such kind of solutions are available for process industry, for oil and gas industry, what kind of things can be done. Then we have our Chennai factory in for where we are manufacturing all the 3G, 4G, 5G products, where also we have rolled out actually private wireless network over there, private 4G network, and we have deployed more than hundreds of use cases in the domain of automation, robotics, IoT is part of it. We are doing training of our staff on VR. So digital twins are there. So those things are there. So in all these 4 or 5 domains, we invite startups to come and test their products. Even in our Chennai factory, we invite people from the college students from South. They come and we have made a garage kind of thing. Startup will understand this garage meaning, that where they come and make their own production and then give us to us, just test it. So these are the things which we encourage people with the collaboration with the industry, with universities, with TSPs, and then most important thing, we are deeply engaged with our regulatory bodies, whether it is a DOT, TEC, TSDSCI, BIF, and we have further our collaboration with institutions like ISC, where we are working on along with Nokia Bell Labs. We are working on a robotics projects where everything is managed by robotics. So this is the way how we encourage, we shortlist these use cases and then also guide them that what is the need of the end enterprise. So I think I can keep on talking on these things, maybe on a separate channel, but discussions. But yes, this is the way how we do and engage with these guys. And the testimony, like you were asking, India Mobile Congress 2019. In the last 2 years, it has not happened on the field basis, but in last was where everybody was face to face. I have established around 5 to 7 this startups who were showcasing the use cases on a 5G technology in Nokia booths, as well as we demonstrated those use cases on Airtel, Jio, and Vodafone and BSNL booths. And just to tell you that some of the use cases were seen by our that time telecom minister, Mr. Prasad, Shavi Shankar Prasad, and he was really saying that, is it India made or you have taken it from China? So that kind of compliment we got, let me tell you these things. And these were the cases in remote education, healthcare, and our agriculture sectors.
This is wonderful to know. So in fact,
and other thing I can mention, last statement from my side is that people may be knowing of the 5G field trials happening, which is almost happening for last six months. And where we again, apart from our in-house use cases, we have invited all the startups based on our engagement shortlisting. We tell them, you come and demonstrate the use cases to the world, because they're the CXO level coming from different organizations. You tell them that these are the things available. Maybe they will use it 6 months, 1 year down the line, but they know that your coordinates, that you are here in the market. So drone companies, we are talking to different drone companies, and I understand that these drone guys have been used by the government to deliver the COVID vaccines in the eastern part of the country. So things are available, people are making use of it. We need to reach out to these guys.
So what was really wonderful, Mr. Amit, was how you emphasized at least a couple of times on how Nokia works with bringing the ecosystem together.
Yes.
Right? Because it's because I remember you mentioned how you not just work with startups, but you ensure you work with the academia, the students, the regulatory body, the associations involved in enabling the ecosystem. I think there's a great amount of effort, or a structured effort, in my view, that you have put through for sure, which I think a lot of others can also take as a learning in terms of how you work across the ecosystem here. And
just to add over here, I am part of the DOT has set up with DOT and TC jointly has set up with 5 or 7 working groups for finding out and fixing the use cases for the different industry verticals. For 2 verticals, I am part of the member of the DOT working groups, whether for education or healthcare on the manufacturing side. So I also contribute, and there what I do is, we are not in-house generating all the use cases. I try to introduce startups who is available to us. So we bring in that also there. So we are trying to give the platform to them, that you come and present in front of TEC, that this is the kind of use case available. Then TEC or DOT mandates to the CSPs, okay, test these use cases.
And I think this particular sector is a lot more. There's a lot more need for all of us to collaborate across the ecosystem.
That's
because
right.
unlike, let's say, I mean, I keep giving software as an example, right? Unlike the software case, you can go sell independently and you onboard and you keep selling. Here, it's an entire ecosystem that we are all building, and every single player, I think, is very important. I think the most important focus also as a part of the Broadband India Forum Connectivity Accelerator is to bring all of us together and spur the movement of the startups to work closely with the industries. And I'm really glad that we've been able to make that progress over the last couple of weeks. I've got one question for you from one of our startups, Mr. Anand. So I will call it out for you. Your 2 cents to these startups that are looking to collaborate with a Nokia. It could be from one of the use cases that we've already spoken about, from a Wi-Fi connectivity, or it could be any specific use cases, things that a startup should do, should not do, because I'm sure a lot of startups end up having some red flag, make the typical startup mistake, which doesn't really work when it comes to a collaboration with a corporate. So your 2 cents on things to do, things not to do, and if you can also summarize and end it with one successful partnership that you are really proud of when it comes to a Nokia as a startup. You could be a use case that you want to just let everyone know.
Yeah, sure. In fact, there are many, but let me start with your first question. See, for the startups, like I say that these are the very young guys who are starting out of the college and maybe after 1 or 2 years. So they need to keep focus on their product and the end goals, what they have thought of and what they want to develop. They need to see that it is not a lab product only. What's going to happen when it is going to be for a large scale or mass deployment, which means how the performance of this, because every product is going to be based on software, this thing only. So how the software is going to behave when it is a mass deployed, how you are going to do a corrective action, field deployment. You need to do some certain local, like say you are developer of application, but you need some SI partners who can really deploy that place at a low cost, because if you are moving everywhere in the part of the country or world, things will not work for you. So you need to see that how you will get it delivered at the end locations, how will support them in terms of some failures, remote support or some physical support required or not, binding with the hardware vendors. So those things are really required. And one thing which I think one of our speaker in the already told, that different business model you need to think of. It can't be completely one model which you can work for you. You need to think of whether it's a capex based model, opex based model, revenue sharing, or other thing was a wholesale or direct dealer kind of thing. Those models are really going to evolve basically, and they're evolving, because now it has happened. Let's say on a charging per megabit, they must be knowing that when you see a browse any application, there are ads coming in. So how many hits are happening on that? So there are different models which are there, how the revenues sharing revenue model has to be created by these guys. They need to think in that direction also, apart from developing products. And last but not least, patience. Because in every startup and every journey of the big corporate also, there's always ups and downs. So, but if your focus is clear that yes, we have to achieve this, so all this has to be taken as a pinch of salt. That's a bit piece of advice and guidance to these guys on this successful thing. Like the most successful like I mentioned in my IMC 2019, that where we were able to bring in 4 or 5 startups and demonstrating of different use cases, whether in the healthcare sector. I can name if you want. There was XR Digitech who are working in AR VR environment, and it was the first VR case for me also. So it was a real experience 3.5 years from now, that what is actually VR for me, right? Then we have a TIA Tech, a company from down south, who are able to do the remote diagnostic, remote healthcare of people without sending a doctor at the remote down location. So that was very well appreciated by our Ravi Shankar Prasad and even the chairman of BSNL. And they wanted to do field trial in Gandhinagar and Ahmedabad kind of locations. So we worked on that as well. Then on the agriculture side, we were able to show to the ministry that yes, with the help of combination of drones plus video analytics, how they can see the crop management. They can see this with the different help of IoT sensors. You can see the the health of soil, the kind of pesticide over there. And then when you're putting your crops and the products into the warehouse, what kind of ambient temperature, pressure, condition, and humidity are being maintained. So these were the startups which were really able to help us and demonstrated this case, and really seen by our big industry veterans over there. So that's a success. And nowadays, if you talk me that one success, like I'll tell you, which people will be very happy to see. I was working with Adverb. I'm sure people might have heard this name, which almost a month and a half back has been, Reliance has invested in that around $135 million. And they are a big robotics company who are supplying robots to our Flipkart and this guy Amazon for big warehouses, and even talking to Patanjali and well. So that's one real success. I could also see that yes, the startup which you selected, now they've got big around 54% stake from Reliance. They've got at $135 million. So that should be good to hear from some of the people.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Mr. Amit, on joining us and sharing your insights. I think been very, very valuable, having you here. And of course, in the paucity of time, we will have to end this here, and we'll continue to take questions from all of you who have a question for Amit. We will definitely work with Mr. Amit and get them
Sure.
answered for you. So thank you so much, Mr. Amit. Very grateful for having you here, and very grateful
Thank
to
you.
have Nokia support for the Broadband India Forum's Connectivity Accelerator. We look forward to having your support for all the startups that are building around the PM WANI use cases in the next couple of months. So in the interest of time, I would also like to go quickly summarize a couple of key points that I really enjoyed in the last 90 minutes of my conversations. And I would also love to invite Mr. Arun Mukherjee to join me here, as we conclude today's session. Arun, I think it was fabulous. The last 90 minutes have been really amazing.
Absolutely.
Going into the world of PM WANI, and more importantly, I think we've delved a lot into the world of how industries look at the space, how industries look at collaborating with startups. I think the most important theme for a lot of startups that have joined today was how do corporates work with startups? What are business? Because most of the cases here, the startups will not be able to sell to the ultimate customer, like what Francis also said. The startups will be integrating into one of the larger corporates or into the PM WANI ecosystem as they sell to the customers themselves. And hence, it's important to see what business models work for you as well as for the corporate that is looking to integrate into you. I think great nuggets of learning. In fact, because Amit's still here, I really loved a few points that he was talking in terms of have a lot more patience. As startups, you want sales to be closed in 15 days. Right, when we work on something as massive as the PM WANI, it takes 15 days to set up and schedule meetings and understand what are the opportunities, right, with a particular partner. What we request is, for sure, you continue to build like a startup, but when you engage with the larger ecosystem, have a little more patience, because this entire ecosystem is evolving. So that is a request from me, because all of us are in this together. Like what Amit also said, Mr. Amit talked about how the ecosystem is coming together, the academia, the regulatory bodies, the enablers like the Broadband in India Forum, Headstart, etc., who are enabling all of us to come together. I think it's very important for us to know that we are at the cusp of something massive, right? The fruit is not already here, like what we had Mr. Kishore Babu talk. The seeds have been sown. The fruits are here to be enjoyed a couple of years from now. We are here to ensure that we grow them successfully, right? And that's my request for all of us, all the startups and the panel members. Thank you so much for joining us. And Arun, I would love to have you share your vote of thanks.
Thanks, Gautamji. I must say, you moderated today's session excellently, keeping a very good perspective on the main theme of business models, as it were. Thank you. So as we bring this session to a close, and before I say anything else, I would once again just like to remind everyone that next Saturday on the 12th of March, we are going to be having a session on technology regarding PM WANI. And to give a perspective on that, we're not just talking about the technology of PM WANI per se, but we are looking at how the future technology could help PM WANI. Because Wi-Fi, to maintain consonance with the gigabyte technology that fiber and 5G allows, it's also keeping pace. And there are new developments taking place so that you don't have a bottleneck. You will get gigabyte data flows from 5G and fiber, etc. And suddenly you'll find your Wi-Fi is not giving you the kind of connectivity that you would get elsewhere. So Wi-Fi is, there's a lot to be seen, and there are developments in the field of Wi-Fi which will be discussed, which will give an impetus to business in the future. And then following that, on the 16th of March, there will be a session on investments. So there's a lot happening. We look forward to your participation in that. And now I would like to give a very big thanks to Mr. Kishore Babu. His guidance is greatly respected by Broadband India Forum, and it was our pleasure that he addressed today's event. We thank him for highlighting some of the key efforts undertaken by the government and which are underway just now to improve the ecosystem for PM WANI. Mr. Srinivas Gudipudi has CEO and CTO of MatreComm, has been a strong supporter of this cause, and he's taken a lot of time out, and we thank him for sharing his tremendous experience in the challenges and opportunities faced in the implementation running a PM WANI network. It was indeed appreciated that he's making such a big effort to share his learnings for the benefit of others. And to Mr. Francis Jersey, we thank you, sir, for providing a global look at the development and usages of the internet and the introduction of the metaverse. Yes, building the metaverse will require a very broad effort from everyone. There are tremendous opportunities to be derived, and there couldn't have been a better person to introduce this than yourself, sir. Thank you. And Mr. Amit Anand, sir, I think from Nokia is a very valued member also of Broadband India Forum. Thank you for sharing the tremendous work that Nokia is doing with the startups, providing them so much guidance and impetus, as well as talking about complementing technologies. Startups do bring an innovative and disruptive approach to latest technologies, but yes, we at BIF firmly believe that all technologies complement each other and all technologies are necessary in reaching broadband to all corners. So thank you for giving that look at how to, for startups to, keep themselves focused and go forward, and know that there is support from large corporates also. Big thanks to our Director General, Mr. Rajat Mukherjee, for setting the tone of the session in his introductory address. And a special thanks to our President, Mr. T.V. Ramachandran, who's been one of the main drivers of PM WANI in India. So with that, I'd like to say thank you to all those who've taken time out today to attend and ask questions. We will be getting back to you. It's not always easy for people to make time on weekends, so it's really appreciated that you have participated. We have posted questions posed in our launch event as well as the subsequent event a couple of Saturdays ago for the Accelerator program, and they've been posted on our website. And we've provided answers to those questions also. We will be taking up the questions posed. Some of them have been answered today, and we would be providing you answers to these questions. We will try and mail you the answers also, as well as put them on the website for everybody to have a look at them. Meanwhile, please feel free to reach out for any of the further clarifications. So I would like also to take this opportunity to thank Headstart Network Foundation and its entire team for an excellent job they're doing in driving this program. Thank you. I don't want to take, there are a lot of people involved. It would take a long time mentioning everybody. Special thanks to our patron member Meta for their wholehearted support to this Accelerator program, and without whom we would not have been able to initiate such a program of this scale. And to that effect, it would have not been possible to launch such a large program without the support of the Department of Telecommunications. We thank respected Secretary, Department of Telecom and the whole of DOT for the support given to this program. Big thanks to all my colleagues at Broadband India Forum for their tremendous support in this effort. So this is not bye-bye, it is adieu. See you again next Saturday. I look forward to your participation. Jai Hind. Thank you.